means a lot to have you show up. Those of you on Zoom as well, we really appreciate you. Housekeeping for all the new folks, because I see lots of new people here today, which makes my heart happy. The restrooms are over here and right behind those curtains on either side, and feel free to get up whenever you need to. All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. And a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Members only, please say aye to approve the agenda.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, the agenda is approved. Great. We are going to move on. First on our agenda is elected officials and or their representatives. I know we do have one elected official with us tonight, so we'll have Jose go first.
Stand so your group can see me.
They can see you.
Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jose Preciado. I don't think I've met all of you, but I've seen some of you in larger meetings. I am the councilman for District 2 in the city of Chula Vista, a city of 52 square miles and 280,000 plus residents. I say that only because I want you to know that anyone who claims to have the perspective on all of South County is exaggerating. We have huge districts. My district, District 2, is larger than the city of National City and its whole population. So I have 77,000 residents that live in my district. I'm here today to share a few words about Chula Vista and also to seek an invitation to come visit you later in the year so I can share more information about Chula Vista and the things that impact us. I will say the following. Chula Vista, with 280,000 residents, my district, the biggest challenge I have as a representative, 5% of the people who live in my district do not own a vehicle in the household. That means public transportation is critical for those families. I have 2 census tracts where single family households led by women and with children are experiencing poverty. Their children have are in nutritional deserts, they call them. But more importantly, according to, and I'm going to stop right now. More importantly, according to the Hunger Coalition, there's about 5,000 residents, 5,000 to 7,000 residents in my district that experience hunger every day. In any case, I know you hear about Chula Vista, about the Gaylord and the university. We have real challenges in Chula Vista. I represent some of the residents that live in West Old Chula Vista, and I look forward to meeting with you and talking to you soon.
Thank you very much, Jose. Do we have any other elected officials and or their representatives? Anybody on Zoom with their hand up? All right, then we will move on. So we are going to elect our own officers for the club. We elect half of our officers on even years, half of our officers on odd years for a 2-year term. Because my term is up today and I am on the slate for re-election, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Susan Pinato.
Thank you. Before we start, I would like to thank someone who has been our internal VP. She's not here, but Beatrice is here. Somewhere. Didn't I see Beatrice? Oh, yes, Beatrice. Beatrice, would you be sure that you extend our greatest gratitude to Andrea, your partner, for her service as our internal VP? Thank you. We really appreciate it. It's a shame she's not here. So we do have a slate of nominations, and I'd like to introduce the slate. It's been a while since I've done this. So Kathy has agreed to be president again. Amber Niatoa, where's Amber? Oh, she's on Zoom.
I'm on Zoom.
Don't have her, okay.
No, I'm on Zoom, I'm here.
Can we show her? Oh, there she is. Okay. So Amber, Amber has agreed to run as our internal VP. That is someone who would help Kathy and help with the internal affairs of the club. And Hannah Green, our secretary over here, raise your hand, Hannah. Hannah has agreed to run for secretary again. And Patricia, Patricia Wadowski, Patricia has agreed to run for our membership chair. Now, we are also accepting nominations from the floor. So if anybody is interested, we will entertain nominations. Okay. All right. Hearing none, no nominations from the floor. These sticks are something we started a long time ago. They're a tradition here. And if you are a voting member, you get to hold up your stick. And this is something they do in the county party and the central committee. If you're a voting member of the central committee, you have a stick. So I thought it would be kind of cute if our members had a stick. So what? Oh, we could just take a motion to approve the slate, or we could vote on the slate. By acclamation, we could do that. All right. Do I hear a second? Okay. Is anyone opposed? I proclaim our slate elected.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you to everybody who is running for another 2-year term. Your work is appreciated, and I'm really glad that everybody, and including you, Amber, thank you so much for stepping up to be an internal vice president. We really appreciate having you. Would you like to say anything, Amber? You're our only new officer.
I just thank you all for this opportunity. I look forward to serving and to represent North County. And thank you very much. Thank you for electing me. I feel honored.
All right. Thank you, Amber. Great. So I will also say this is my last term. So we have 2 years, everybody, to gear up to be on the elected officers. And we will be electing other officers next February, because like I said, we elect half and half. So, all right, let's move on to our program. We have got a very special guest from UCSD. We've got Dr. Rebecca Fielding Miller, and she is going to come and speak to us. You know, it's so funny because Rebecca used to say, when introduced as a doctor, she would say, "Not the important kind." And then COVID hit, and she happened to be an epidemiologist. So here she is, the important kind of doctor, Rebecca Fielding Miller.
Hello, that's me. Yeah, I used to say, yeah, not the useful kind. I'm a social epidemiologist. But then like everybody knows what I do now, which is really bad. Like when everybody knows what an epidemiologist is, we're not having a good time. So in the before times, I was actually on the board of this club. It was lovely. It launched me into a lot of activism. So I'm really happy to be back. Just for a little bit of background, I am an associate professor of public health at UC San Diego. My training is in behavioral sciences and health education. That's my PhD. My master's degree is in international health, social and behavioral interventions. I went to a lot of school. And my research focus is really on global health, gender equity, HIV, gender-based violence in the US and Southern Africa, with a bit of a left into COVID for a few years. So I really want to talk to you all a little bit tonight about what is happening with the administration. And there are so many things happening. with the administration. But I think what's happening, the systematic attacks on science and the scientific community is really important. And I think it's really important for some very practical reasons. It's UCSD is the second biggest employer in the county. It's an enormous job base that's being systematically defunded. But I also think it's part of a bigger picture, and I want to talk about that. So John, can you go to my next slide, please? So about a week or so ago, there's this list started to circulate among scientists. And it was a list of, I haven't counted them, but quite a lot of words that were going to get flagged if you used them in a grant application. The way science works, I'm not going to get into the weeds of like federal research funding because it's like overly complicated. But basically the way it works is I write a grant. That grant might represent 3 years of work. It's 12 pages long, and then it's 200 pages long of backup documents. That grant goes to another panel of scientists. They look it over, they decide if it's good or not, and then they forward it to some internal administrators who also have PhDs, and they decide, you know, the top 10% of these are going to get funded. It's really hard, but it is the backbone of how federal research, of how scientific research works in the US. The US is the leader in medical research and biotech for the entire world, and this is the process. So this list started circulating, and it was from a program officer at the National Science Foundation. You can go to the next slide too. And it had all these words in it. And these were words that if you used them in your grant was going to get flagged. And nobody quite knew what flagged meant, but it became pretty clear pretty quickly that flagged meant this is something this administration thinks is bad. This is something that this administration does not want to fund anymore. These are some pretty striking words. Some of them are basic technical words. Like bias is a statistical term. I mean, it's a social word too, but it's a statistical word. And this started circulating, and soon we started seeing projects defunded. I know of a project in California, a funded project that has been defunded because it works with LGBT communities abroad. We started seeing entire mechanisms for funding getting pulled because they were meant to support diverse scientists, people that had worked twice as hard to get in the room, and like an incentive for an employer to keep these people on board, an entire mechanism to encourage employers to hire these scientists was pulled. Go to the next slide. Oh yeah, keep going. It's just a lot of words. And we started seeing this flow chart that program officers were supposed to use to say, well, are any of these words in here? Okay, well, if they are, we need to flag this because this is violating our DEIA mandates. This is not science that we want to fund. This is science that we want to delete, push back on, get rid of. And it really freaked people out, is the technical term. So I want to walk through some of these words and talk about why these are happening. So can you go to the next slide? Maybe forward. Well, my highlights didn't happen. This is sad times. Okay, well, we'll just talk about some words. You can go forward again. Other way. Other way. The other way. The other way. Going the other way. Okay, so one of the words on here, back to my man. This is why I like, it's okay. So one of the words on here, one of the words they flagged gender, and they flagged LGBT. And I think it's really important to know that they came for scientists really fast, but they didn't come for us first. Because if you remember who they came for during the election and who they came for absolutely first, it wasn't scientists, it was the transgender community. Absolutely first. And on this list is the word gender, LGBT, sexual preferences. And I think that's really important because the very first thing they did before they even got elected is they wanted to deny what was real, the reality in front of our faces, that transgender people exist, that they're real, that they're our cousins and our friends and the people that we love. And they wanted to say, these people who we know are real don't exist. Their very first step was to deny the reality in front of our faces and to see if they could get away with it. And the second thing they did was they came after science. I have a lot of feelings about the scientific process, But like in essence, one of the things that it does is it helps us understand what's real. We describe and understand the world through the scientific process. And when they come for the words that let us accurately describe the world around us, they are coming for our ability to say what's happening and what's not. When they tell me I can't use the word women, it means I can't say that abortion bans are hurting women. When they tell me I can't use the term BIPOC or racism or equity or female, it means I can't do that there is a maternal mortality crisis among African American women. I can't apply for a grant to document that. I can't come up with a way to intervene on that and see if it works or not because that science isn't going to be funded. When they flag the word disability and systemic and institutions and barriers, it means I'm not going to be able to tell you that whatever they do next to Medicaid, to Medicare, to health insurance laws, I'm not going to be able to systematically document the way that creates barriers to healthcare for people with disabilities. And so there's a lot of really nitty-gritty reasons why this is bad, right? UCSD, like I said, is the second biggest employer. We're going to see massive amounts of job loss as these policies go through, but it's also a fundamentally fascist attack on our ability to see and describe the world. They already tried it once, right? They told us to deny what we knew was true. And now they're coming for our ability to look around and use words to accurately say what's happening in the world. And they're starting with the scientific community, but I don't think they're going to stop there. So a couple of examples of things that are happening. We're seeing, for example, journal articles that scientists at the Centers for Disease Control have written about long COVID in rural communities, or modeling epidemic impacts, the way that, modeling epidemic impacts. Those articles are getting pulled and removed from scientific journals. Entire scientific journals are being stopped from publishing. USAID funds a scientific journal that helps practitioners and researchers talk about global health in a meaningful way. USAID funds that. That journal, as far as we can tell, has pretty much been halted in its tracks. So there's real practical impacts here. Yeah, so for the USA Journal, nobody's quite sure. Yeah. Yeah, so this one in particular I'm talking about is called the Global Health Science and Practice Journal. It's USAID funded, but there's no USAID staff right now. So as far as we can tell, papers just aren't moving through. So for example, one of my students was going to publish in that journal, and I said, ooh, we need to find a different journal because I don't know what's happening with that one. So don't submit their reformat it. Let's find a different one. Yeah, it's not good when I'm telling graduate students don't publish in that journal because it's run by the American government and we're worried about censorship. Like that's not a good moment for us. So some of the other stuff, some of the reasons. So none of this is constitutional, right? Like that's on its face a bit of a problem. So Congress allocates the money for the National Institutes of Health. They say, here's the money for the NIH. Here's what we want the NIH to prioritize. It's passed. They allocate the funding, right? That's Congress's job. And then NIH spends it. So on its face, none of this is constitutional, which seems like a bit of a problem to me. We have a lot of constitutional crises going around. This seems like one of them. But the other issue is this is going to create a generational brain drain. It is already throwing the careers of junior scientists into chaos. We're seeing this with postdocs not getting their funding. We're seeing this. You need like so many of these big federal grants to get tenure. And if the whole process is in like chaos and frozen, you're not going to get a grant, you're not going to get tenure, and early career scientists are going to leave. So we're going to have a hollowing out of early career scientists, the women of which have already been hit incredibly hard by COVID, by the way. We've already lost a generation of like mom scientists. And now those of us who are left are hanging by a thread. And we're going to see brain drain from the top. Like we have seen this already. We've done this as a natural experiment. So states like Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia have passed similar laws on a state level. And we've seen scientists leave. We've seen about 30% of scientists look for jobs in other states that don't have these laws. We've seen them discourage people from applying. And we're going to have that happen on a national level. People who can leave are going to leave. And people who get defunded are just going to be gone. And so we're going to have a massive hollowing out of the research enterprise of the United States. It's going to last long beyond this administration. Okay, that's a lot of doom and gloom. Let me move forward a little bit in my slides and talk about something a little bit less doom and gloomy. So, oh wait, no, here's one more doom and gloom. So, so the other impact of this is it's having an incredible chilling effect. We've seen Senator Ted Cruz has his list of naughty words, which you just saw, and he has set interns to go search through this list of naughty words and find, I don't know, probably 1,000 National Science Foundation projects that he thinks meet the criteria for woke science. And these are things like helping middle schoolers see a solar eclipse, making it so self-driving cars run over fewer people. Actually quite a lot of projects at SDSU have been flagged, several projects at UCSD, and it's often for things like doing outreach to middle school students or providing internships to high school students to come and participate in research over the summer. Oh yeah, that's been cut, that's gone. Yeah. Oh, she said that's what they're cutting. So things like high school outreach, middle school outreach. So projects that are, so a lot of these things have annual, every year you have to submit a progress report, you get refunded. And so projects that have things like a component of high school outreach, that component is not getting funded next year.
Real quick, before we have folks talking, you have to use the microphone. Otherwise, the folks online can't hear.
No.
Are you comfortable taking questions now, or do you want to hold?
Yeah, I can take, yeah, sure.
So when you say they, I understand what the administration is trying to do, but when you say they, is it immediately coming from the chancellor's office or university president's office and say immediately stop? Is that how it's happening? And they're getting it from where, Congress or the Department of Education or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the impact is sort of twofold. One of it is the official move. So grants getting removed from the queue to get reviewed, people being told not to review certain parts of the work. And some of it is just the chilling effect, which is what I'm talking about up here. People are really afraid. Our careers are built on these grants. And if we get targeted, if our funding gets pulled, we lose our jobs and our staff lose their jobs. And so there is a rush to comply in advance in the hopes that you won't get targeted. And I can't blame a lot of people, right? The thing about this type of research is people do research on things that I often have firsthand experience with. So one of the major drivers of sort of big gaps in who gets funded, and there is, people of color, women tend to get less federal funding than white men. And one of those reasons is because we like to study things about our communities, about people of color, about women's health, and those topics are already less well funded. And so it's dangerous. It's not economically safe for a lot of people to stick their necks out. And so there's a lot of just doing more than you need to just in case, because you don't want to get in trouble.
Just as another example, there is a journal called the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and they have been republishing articles that were taken down by this administration, specifically having to do with adolescent LGBT plus behavioral health report, a 2023 report. And the language that was put in says, per a court order, Health and Human Services is required to restore this website. And then they give the date and time. But then it says, any information on this page promoting gender ideology is extremely inaccurate and disconnected from the immutable biological reality that there are two sexes, male and female. And the Trump administration rejects gender ideology. This is actually on the website. The Trump administration rejects gender ideology and condemns the harms it causes to children by promoting their chemical and surgical mutilation, and to women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, well-being, and opportunities. This page does not reflect biological reality, and therefore the administration and this department rejects it.
Yeah, that's SAMHSA. So that's part of Health and Human Services. That's part of the federal government. So there's so much happening that I'm trying to give you guys a 30,000-foot overview. One thing that has happened is a lot of data has been removed from government databases. So CDC took down a lot of data, a lot of their reports. There's an entire website of like evidence-based HIV interventions that just kind of disappeared for a minute. They were ordered by a judge to put some of this stuff back again. But they put it back with this kind of like sticky note of we're mad about it and we don't agree. So there's just a lot going on. We haven't got to RFK. Ask me about him after I've had my wine. Oh, there's my highlights. I'm so glad. Okay. We can move forward. I'm done with those. I was mad about those. I was mad about those. Okay. Yeah, so there's this incredible chilling effect. There's this website that some other right-wing hoo-ha set up where they are flagging people in the federal government who are engaged in woke ideology. And it's really striking if you go, so this is the National Institutes of Health, and there's this really striking pattern if you look at the demographics of who they keep flagging. It seems to be just every Black woman they could find at a federal institution is on this DEI watch list. And like, it's scary. Like people are...
She said is the bottom line for us not to think.
I think the bottom line is, you know, I think a lot, okay, so I'm up here talking about science, and you need to know that I'm like a pretty dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek nerd. And like there's this episode where Captain Picard gets kidnapped. And the whole, listen, I'm up here talking about science, we're talking about Star Trek. And the whole arc is he is being asked to deny what's in front of him. He's being shown 4 lights and told that there are 5. And he is put through like terrible torture and deprivation until finally he's rescued by the Enterprise. But the first thing they want him to do is deny reality. Is they want him to say that there are 5 lights. Because once you can deny reality, it's done. They want us to deny reality. They don't want us to be able to document what's true and talk about what's true. And I have a lot of feelings about like the technicalities of my job as a scientist, but as a person, don't like living in that kind of society. It makes me real nervous. So go ahead, let's talk about what you can actually do. So I think there's a few things, some more specific than others. I think because one of the major goals is to get us to deny what's true, I think one of the most important things that you can do, and that I'm certainly doing, is to ground yourself in what's real every day and to do it with other people. I put up this book that I love and that I've been coming back to over and over again called Let This Radicalize You by Mariam Kaba. And it's the whole quote is, let this radicalize you rather than turn you to despair. And it talks about how to organize with your community, how to show up for other people, how to refuse to abandon the people they want you to abandon. And I think that refusing to cede the truth, refusing to cede the meaning of words is one of the most important things, because once that's done, it's over. I also think that, you know, this is the Women's Democratic Club. I know that what's coming next on their agenda, because I've read Project 2025, is state block grants. I have no idea what block grants are going to look like for research funding. I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around it. But the University of California system is one of the finest research institutions in the world. We have access to one of the crown jewels that the administration is trying to dismantle. And we have the opportunity at the state level to push our governor, our state assembly members to remember the treasure that is the UC system and the Cal State system, that is our higher education system, and to not leave us behind. And that we are a great place to support, to push back, to fund good research, because we are precarious. We all depend on this federal funding. And if we lose it, we're going to lose our jobs. And this is a really good time and place for the state to step in and defend something really wonderful here.
Rebecca,
Yes.
may I comment?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to expand on your statement that faculty members will lose their jobs if they don't get grants.
Mhm.
The university system is going to fall apart. We will not have UC if we don't get these grants because the UC system and other universities depend on money from grants. Just now for, and correct me, Rebecca, National Institutes of Health
Oh, yeah.
has been told that you can only charge 15% overhead. Overhead is rent of your space. Overhead is complying with reports that the federal government requires. Rebecca can tell us more about overhead, but in order to exist, in order to pay the faculty members, the university needs them to get grant money.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, other arcane technicalities. Overhead is things like how we pay the custodial staff, how we pay the accountants who keep track of the very complicated budgets, because like I have to keep track of my budget. They don't, but I do. Yeah, it is. The University of California system is really precarious right now as a result of this. And I think that we have something really special here and worth defending. So please call your state representatives, call the governor. When it comes time to start really getting into the gubernatorial election, ask about us. Ask candidates, what are you going to do to protect and build the UC system and the CSU system and the community college system?
Well, and what you have pioneered is tracking markers for infectious diseases through wastewater. And if that is not funded or if that tracking is not kept up to date, then we're all at risk if there's an outbreak and that data is not being analyzed. So these are real threats to public health, to public safety, and the cuts are not just about, I mean, God bless you. I don't want you to lose your job, but I also don't want to lose the capability to prevent another outbreak if we know now we can identify it early and get people to take action before it's more widespread.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay. And so the other thing you can do at the federal level, eventually they're going to turn their attention from us and start torturing somebody else. And we're going to say, oh, I'm glad that's over. Whatever shreds of the NIH are left, I'm glad that's still here. And I want you to think about why they're coming for these things that were already radically underfunded. It is really hard to get research funded on maternal health. It is really hard to get research funded on gender-based violence. And yes, ma'am.
We have a Zoom question.
Yes.
Elise Pipkin-Allen has her hand up to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is so scary what you're saying, really. But you
Good.
did say they're coming against Black women. Is that Black women in the science field or just Black women in general?
Yes.
Yes, to what?
I think this is my arena, so I can tell you about in this corner, this is how they're coming for Black women. I can tell you this is how they're coming for Black women in science. One of the things that, like I said, one of the gaps in funding and why white scientists tend to get more funding than scientists of color, why men tend to get more funding than women, is because women and people of color tend to do a lot of research on things that affect women and people of color. And so if you systematically defund research on those topics, you're kind of in a colorblind way systematically defunding and firing those scientists. And you don't even have to put up a website or have a fit about DEI.
One more question from
Yeah.
Zoom. Danny, go ahead.
Hey, and so thank you so much for the presentation. I think the work that you guys do is extremely vital as a sociologist myself. So I wanted to ask, and my deepest apologies if you have already spoke about this. I'm just checking into the meeting. Is there a legal battle challenging this new
Yeah.
system?
Yeah. So so once they came for indirects, once the Trump administration targeted sort of the money that comes to universities indiscriminate of what the research topic is, at that point, 22 attorney generals sued, and a consortium of like medical research universities and a consortium of private universities across the United States both sued. So there has been a freeze on the indirect thing. So there has been some pushback. There was a lot of noise about the freezing, but so far the only systematic pushback that I've seen has been about indirects. And some of it is because this is all like, none of this is an executive order. It's stuff happening in very, very Byzantine, very boring mechanisms behind the scenes, right? Like it's very hard to explain why, well, a council that met 6 months ago that's going to meet again in 3 months and has like these technical specifications and the federal, it's really hard to make that into a story. It's very easy to sue over indirects, but it's still happening, which, thank you, Danny, for my fig, brings me to my last point. Eventually, people are going to start running for Congress again. Actually, like I'm sure they are now in like 5 minutes. People are going to say, I know, okay, as people run for 2026. And people are going to say, oh, I'm so glad that's over. I'm so glad they're done dismantling the NIH. Whatever we have left, I'm glad we at least have that. But I think it's incredibly important to remember that Congress funds the NIH. Congress sets our scientific research priorities for this country. 50 years ago, the National Institute of Mental Health had a center on research on preventing rape, on preventing sexual assault. That was a federally funded research institute that supported scientists who are still leaders in the field, that supported the little evidence we have on what to do about sexual assault. And it existed because Congress said it should. And then it's gone because Congress decided it wasn't important anymore, and there's always a backlash to feminist movements. I think it is vital, as you call your member of Congress, which of course we're all doing every day because we have a lot of feelings about a lot of things and they should know about them. As you're asking questions about people running, you need to ask them, are you mitigating the damage? Or are you pushing back and are you trying to make things better? They're trying to defund these things for a reason. So are you going to pour more money into these things, or are you going to leave us with the same broken system that already underfunded research on gender, on health disparities, on the root causes of bad health and fascism? Are you going to pour money into these topics that they're trying to defund? Because clearly they want them defunded for a reason. You need to ask people running for office, are you going to champion these topics? Are you going to fund these topics? And those need to be the people that you push for. Those need to be the questions, because putting us back where we started is just going to get us back where we started, and that's here. That's not great. In the words of some pretty bad people, we shouldn't let a good crisis go to waste, right? This is a chance to make things better eventually. And that's my pitch. The UC system is great, and we can make this better eventually.
Thank you. I work for UCSD under a research grant at Muñoz Cancer Center at the Kick It program. And I'm wondering, we're up for a grant renewal right now. Do you think it would move the conservatives at all if we could show a cost benefit for funding a grant in terms of public health? Would we take out the words they don't like and put in a cost benefit analysis so that it shows them that their almighty dollar will be preserved? Is that the tactic we have to take to get our grant refunded for Muñoz Cancer Center?
I think everybody's going to have to make their own choice about what's fundable and what they need. I'm giving different advice to early career scientists who are more vulnerable and just need to like stay in the game than I am to people who have solid funding and tenure. I think on a systematic level, certainly changing the profile of research that's funded from research on health disparities to research on cost is a bit of a win for them. I also think they don't care, really. I mean, I think you can, this is my hot take, not the opinion of my employer, but it's I don't think they care about what's true. I think they just want to dismantle everything. So you can comply and advance all you want and it won't help you. Yeah.
I just want to make a couple brief comments. So I work at San Diego State. I'm the assistant dean for undergraduate studies. We're seeing a lot of damage. There was a letter that went out from the Undersecretary for Education, the Department of Civil Rights, and it was a dear colleague letter, just like a fork in the road. Now they're sending dear colleague. And basically, it is eliminating anybody who is not a white male. Now, let me be clear. There are people out there that are out to get us all. Unless you're a billionaire, you are probably not on the right side right now. My brother works in the Department of Justice here in San Diego. They fired 20 judges who work in immigration. Now, if you believe that the big policy thing is to deport individuals, and if you fire judges that that go through this process, what we're basically seeing is the destruction of the administrative state in the United States. There will be more chaos. Right now, you know, we all got here really nice, everything's fine, but that's not going to last if this continues. And so I just caution you that it is really more about what kind of government will we have left if we don't do anything about it.
One of the things that strikes me when you're talking about what's going to make a difference to a conservative is when their voters really feel it. You know, if someone is sick and the treatment, the study for their treatment is all of a sudden gone and there's no help for them, and that might be a straight white man. And then at that point, it might hit home. But how long is that going to take?
Yeah, I think we're seeing, for example, the major hospitals in a lot of red states are academic hospitals. And so when you defund, you know, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, all of a sudden one of the premier sources of medical care in Alabama is in trouble. And I hope that that impact will start to come home to people and that we can reach out to folks in other states, in other districts, and sort of point out and bring them in, because I don't think berating people is going to help them, but say, gosh, this is happening. This is why this is happening. And like, here's the number of your member of Congress. You might want to call them about it.
We have a comment on Zoom from Cheryl Mallory Johnson. Great presentation. Historically, Black women were not legally protected from rape in the U.S. until post the civil rights movement. History can only repeat itself if we close our eyes to it.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
All right, Dr. Fielding Miller, thank you. But we have more?
I just want to say, Becca was one of our first officers in this club many, many years ago.
And we do have another question.
This is kind of a general question for a rookie activist. In calling your senators or Congress people, could someone give an idea of like what you would expect? Like, I know the phone numbers are available online, but is there like a script that you recommend, or what's like the best way to come across that, you know, you're articulate and you know what you want to say, and what can you expect? Or, you know, they say, hello, how can I help you? And then you just launch into your thing. Do you have a time limit? How does that go?
I can give you the talking points for this, and then like so many people here are so excited to answer your question. So my talking points that I would suggest that have worked really well for this are: censorship is bad, and San Diego is UCSD is the second biggest employer in San Diego County, and a lot of people are losing their jobs. As for technique,
so for me, when I call, first of all, it doesn't take 5 seconds. Some people say, oh, it just takes 30 seconds. It takes about 5 minutes because their outgoing answering voicemails are very long. So you have to sit through that. But most of the time you will get an answering machine. So you don't have to be nervous. You don't have to be scared. You get that answering machine. And then I usually just speak my heart. I say I'm angry. I want action, and I want to know what they are doing. I mean, that's been my current spiel when I call, and I call my both my senators and my member of Congress. So I'm trying to do that every day. And there's 2 offices for each, so it's usually 5 or 6 calls.
So, someone who worked for a senator, I can tell you that I would hire interns. They would answer the phone and they log in the calls. I think what's very effective is mail because they track all of that stuff. And then usually when you, at the end of the day, the senator calls and they'll ask, like staff, they'd ask us, well, what's our constituents saying? And, it's bundled up into a thing. So I think that when you speak to your audience, that they're already going to support what it is that you need, that's helpful. But I also think in this day and age, and particularly this world, we use our cell phones. We don't have long distance numbers anymore. I think it would be okay to call the other side and talk to them and say, this is what's going on, because they also have to log in those calls. They also have to log in the mail. And usually the mail, because it's congressional, they have to log in the volume of mail that they're getting. And so they would have to record and they would have to be able to detail, we're getting calls from other people from different states. So I think when you do something like that, your local delegation, it can support them when they go and say, look, it's not just your constituents, it's everybody, because they represent the entire United States, not just their constituency as well, and that's their responsibility. So I would just recommend writing letters to even the other side that are personal and compelling. It's good to call the people that we know they're going to vote our way, but also because we kind of can already count on them. But I think if you put a concerted effort to educate the other side, who knows, it could be helpful.
Thank you for that insight. That's really valuable. I had wondered about mail versus, I know email is ignored the most. And so then voicemails and then letters.
We still have US mail. When that's US mail, it's like it's part of the federal government. It's really logged in because it goes into the US Congress through the US Postal Service. I mean, cell phones, you don't know who's calling, first of all. I don't think that they're going to look at they may or may not. But just writing in letters and maybe not even put the return address. It's opened and it's tossed. So they may not see this coming from San Diego, California.
The representatives will have an outgoing message that asks you your zip code. So they're trying to find out whether or not you are one of their constituents. But if you are nervous about calling, they're getting so many calls right now that it's almost always going to voicemail. And if you really are nervous, then wait till the weekend to call and you can practice doing it to the voicemail. And if you get surprised, you get an intern, just be nice to them because it's not their fault.
I guess my point that I'm saying is that our California Democrats who vote our way, their phone calls are getting inundated by all of us. But Joe Schmo, Republican in a small little honky-tonk town, his phone's probably not ringing at all. So you could get a live person.
And we do have Daryl Issa right here in our county that could be called.
I also heard a statistic, I think from about that the Republicans are calling like 7 times, a minimum of 7 times with more frequency than the Democrats. So it's like we need to be heard, which is why if you have to say take any action, it's call your representatives.
Trish, right? Yeah, which senator? Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oops, got me. Yeah, if you need to know, your senators are we all have the same senators, but we have different members of Congress. So you can look that up online to find your member of Congress and you'll have the phone numbers. Oh.
Angela in the chat put a few apps that you can download: Resist Bot, and 5 Calls. If you search them in the App Store, they should come up pretty easily.
5-star as well. So yeah, there are apps that can help you call. We can put those in, yeah, when I send out the minutes tomorrow or the next day, I will include that information. Anything else for Dr. Fielding Miller?
Hi. I'd like to
Go ahead, Angela.
I'd like to say it's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
And I wanted to tell you that start my video. You really want to see me? But anyway, it's great to see you. And I just wanted to make another suggestion that that people can write letters to the editor of the local paper and express support for our science academia. And then also if people are able to, they can also write the sorry, what I can't think of what it's called now, but where you write an opinion piece also for the paper. But people like and politicians like to see things in the media, because when it's in the media, you reach a mass of people. So calling into the radio station and making yourself heard, and even social media, sharing your point of view, because what happens is more people get to see it and hear it and understand this information. So thank you so much for making us aware of what's going on right here.
Thanks, Angela. It's so nice to see you. I want to add to that a lot of people, a lot of scientists are feeling really scared right now. And I think that a show of support for us would actually feel really, really good. You should see my group chats. We're not okay. And I think that, anything that you can do when there is the March for Science, I think on March 7th, please come, please write a letter. We feel really alone. We're not sure if it's safe to speak up. So, tell us you like us.
And also the city councils are generating their budget proposals right now. So some of the programs, the community development block grants, are also federal funding. And those go to the cities, and then they go out to community groups that apply for funds for domestic violence shelters, for substance treatment, for all sorts of programs that will be eliminated for lack of money, because the city of San Diego relies on those block grants from the federal government. Homeless shelters, support shelter services. I mean, it's a huge long list, and the city of San Diego is about to go through that. So if you are able to submit comments, either calling in via Zoom during council meetings or committee meetings, or submit letters, then as specifically as you can, if there are some of these programs that will be defunded, they will lose their funding, then let them know. The more you can put a name and a face to how this cutbacks will hit people in our neighborhoods, the more it will resonate with people who might just think these are theoretical cuts.
All right, let's thank Dr. Fielding Miller one more time. So much. And that's really interesting about the mail. I hadn't thought that mail would carry more weight than the voicemails and the calls. So next month we will have postcards so that we can write postcards while we're sitting here and having our presentation. So that'll be great. All right, we're going to move on to Chris Muñoz from I Love a Clean San Diego, and he's going to talk to us about reducing our carbon footprint. And, it's easy to forget about the fires that we just had and how horrific they were and how climate change is affecting us all. So it's hard to do so many things at once. And I know we all feel like a raw nerve, but we got to keep up the good fight. So let's welcome Chris.
Thank you. I do have some slides. I'm bringing those up. So my name is Chris. I work for a nonprofit called I Live a Clean San Diego. I don't know if any of you have heard of us before. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Hopefully you've been to some of our events. You can go to the next slide as well. But if you haven't heard of us, we are an environmental nonprofit. We've been keeping San Diego clean since 1954. We organize beach and inland cleanups. We deliver educational presentations And we also run a hotline and website with resources on proper waste disposal and recovery. You can go to the next one. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what waste is, where it comes from, and what we can do to reduce it. Start out with just a little more doom and gloom, maybe. On average, each person that lives in the city of San Diego generates about 6 pounds of waste each and every day. That adds up to a little over 2,000 pounds of waste per person per year. Now, that is a lot of waste, and it all has to go somewhere. The majority of it will end up at one of the 3 landfills we have in San Diego County. We have the Sycamore, the Otay, and the biggest of the 3, which is the Miramar landfill. Now, to give you an idea of how big this landfill is, it's about 12 times the size of the San Diego Zoo, and it's about 18 stories deep. Now, this is a massive area of land that's dedicated to one thing and one thing only, and that's storing waste, right? The thing about landfills is that eventually they will reach capacity, they will have to close down, and we will have to find a new place to store our waste. So our goal here today is to think a little more critically about the things that we do on a daily basis and things that we might be able to change so that we can reduce that overall impact. So a recent study at the Miramar landfill showed that about 40% of everything that ended up there was considered organic, could have actually been diverted and sent over to the Miramar greenery, where it can be turned into nutrient-rich compost that can be used to grow more food. It also showed that another 35% of items that ended up at the Miramar landfill were fully recyclable, whether it was metal, plastic, paper, glass. So right off the bat, this study here shows that if we effectively utilize our curbside bins, the green, blue, black ones, effectively and properly, we can actually divert about 3/4 of everything that's currently going to the landfill. Now, when waste doesn't make it to the landfill and instead enters our environment, we know it as litter. I don't know if any of you know a little bit about the history of I Love a Clean San Diego, but when we first started out in the 50s, the original name was the War Against Litter Committee. So as you can imagine, we have strong feelings about litter. Now, when litter is in the environment, the elements will push it into our gutters. It'll flow down into our storm drains where it travels unfiltered out into our waterways, our rivers, and eventually out into our oceans. And when it reaches the oceans, we know it as marine debris. And marine debris will travel in these large circular currents we call gyres, where they break down into smaller and smaller pieces, and they're having a direct and indirect impact on wildlife throughout that whole process. Eventually, they end up in these locations all over the globe, commonly known as garbage patches. Here off the coast of California, I'm sure you all have heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Currently, it's about twice the size of Texas, and it's made up almost entirely of plastic particles. This image on the right is what we like to call microplastic soup. This is actually a sample from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. As you can see, it's very murky, it's very unappealing. I definitely would not want to be swimming in that. Now, all of this plastic pollution, all this contamination has impacts on wildlife through ingestion, entanglement, habitat destruction, and that microplastic soup can actually get so thick in certain spots that it can actually block out the sun and deprive everything beneath it of essential nutrients. Now, there is also an impact on us, even though we're not in the water. We live in arguably, one of the best cities in the US, right? We literally have it all. We have mountains, we have canyons, we have trails, we have the ocean and beach, and we have global attractions like the zoo and SeaWorld. Now, if our waterways are clogged and our beaches are contaminated, if our air is unpleasant to breathe, people aren't going to want to come, they're not going to want to spend their money, and there's going to be a direct and negative impact on our local economy. If anyone eats seafood, I'm sure you're all aware there have been tons of studies that have found microplastics in seafood from all over the globe, whether it's in the ocean, in rivers, in lakes. Even if you don't eat seafood, you probably use body products, health products, hair, cosmetic products that have ingredients that are derived from items that are, or from things that are found in the ocean. There's also a lot of medical breakthroughs that are made possible because of discoveries made in the ocean, and the oceans are also a massive, account for a massive amount of our supply chain. So if our sea levels are rising, our waters are contaminated, natural disasters are getting worse and worse, we're all gonna feel a very direct and negative impact. So that's a little bit about the doom and gloom. I'm gonna talk more about what we as individuals can do to make a difference, a tangible difference. And here we have the zero waste hierarchy. This is a great guide, a great tool that you can use on a daily basis whenever you're trying to get rid of something that you no longer need. We start out with the most ideal at the top, going all the way down to the least ideal. And it's supposed to be a pyramid. So sorry about that. You can go on to the next one. So the first and most ideal thing that we can do is to reduce our overall consumption and refuse unnecessary items. So we all know that we need to reduce our energy usage, our water usage, our gas usage, but we also want to try to reduce the amount of plastic products and plastic packaging that we're consuming on a daily basis. We also want to refuse unnecessary items. So when you go to the fast food restaurants, you go to cafes, you're automatically handed some plastic straws, some cutlery, maybe a handful of napkins that are probably going to sit in the car for 3-4 months until they disintegrate. So if we can stop this waste from entering the waste stream at the source, if we can take an extra 2 or 3 minutes at the department store and look for items we don't normally buy, but that are packaged in sustainable packaging with less plastic, then that's a step in the right direction. Now, when you're thinking about zero waste, you're thinking about sustainability. It's a huge marketing tactic to get you to buy a whole bunch of new items that will make your zero waste journey easy and effective and make you all of a sudden be zero waste. That is the complete opposite of zero waste. You know, the most sustainable thing the most sustainable product is the one we choose not to buy. So what that means is instead of going out and buying a whole bunch of new items that can make your life easier and make you more sustainable, is to shop your house, shop your garage, look around. You probably have a whole bunch of items that can be reused and repurposed that will work just as well as a new product. Okay. Now, next on the list is to reuse, to repurpose, and to repair. So if we have to use plastic, we go to the grocery store and we forget our bags. Try to use those plastic bags as often as we can for as many times as we can until you can't use them anymore. Repurpose. There are so many things that can be used for different purposes. Personal example, I'm an avid gardener. I love to propagate plants. I love to give flowers away. And I have a real problem with food jars. Okay, you go to the grocery store, you buy pasta, you buy a soda. These companies spend so much money designing these beautiful glass jars that make you want to buy their product. I can't get rid of them. So I love to keep those and I love to propagate. I love to gift them, fill them with flowers. I try to keep them out of the waste stream as long as I can. Go to my house, there's jars everywhere. The last one is to repair. I mean, in this day and age, it's so tempting once something breaks, get something new and shiny, something nice, something you've been wanting for so long. But there's so many different items that can be repaired. Shoes, clothes, appliances. The city of San Diego run in partnership with other nonprofits. They run these fix-it clinics all over the county where you can go and you can talk to experts, you can talk to tinkerers where they can help you and teach you how to fix these common items that can be easily repaired. And all of this is promoting a circular economy instead of a linear economy where we're taking items from the earth, we're making them into a product, and we're using that product for as long as possible and hopefully passing it along to other generations where they can get more use out of it. Next on the list, anything that can't be reused or repurposed, maybe you no longer want, would be to donate. We all know that we can take items to Goodwill drop-offs, Salvation Army drop-offs. They're every other exit on the freeway. They make it very easy for you to get rid of a lot of items very quickly, no questions asked. But I would actually challenge you to go one step further, and instead of dropping them off at a drop-off location, find somebody that actually wants that item. You know, if you don't have to get rid of that item immediately, you know, look for somebody that wants it. Go on Facebook, Craigslist, OfferUp. You put something for free, someone's probably going to come that same day to get it. If you have family and friends, definitely let them know you're wanting to get rid of something. They might be interested. And that way, at least you know that that item's getting a second use. Buy nothing, exactly. There are tons of buy nothing sites where community comes together, they post items, washing machines, refrigerators, things that they don't have a use for, they have to move cross country. Buy nothing groups. That's great. Next. So next up is to recycle. So anything that can't be reused, repurposed, repaired, or donated, hopefully we can try to recycle it. Before we get into that, we're going to start with a little pop quiz. Can anyone tell me which of these 3 items goes into your curbside blue bin? The blue bin, recycle. Okay, I'm hearing all of them, none of them, 1 or 2 of them. I will tell you that in their current states, none of these items can go into your blue bin. No. And that's because, well, we're going to kind of get into this in a minute, but a lot of plastic bags now, they come with all these different recycling symbols. The recycling symbols, they're not regulated. It's kind of a marketing tactic. They can be recycled, but not in the blue bin. You have to take them to a store drop-off. The coffee cup, there's actually 3 components to this coffee cup. You have the cup, you have the sleeve, and you also have the lid. The lid, if it's clean and it's dry, you can recycle that. You can throw the sleeve, as long as there's no coffee stains on it, you can throw that into the recycling bin as well. But the cup has a plastic lining that keeps the drinks within that cup, and it keeps the paper from disintegrating, and that cannot be broken down and recycled and made into new paper products. And then lastly is the pizza box. I heard some good discussions here, but as it stands right now, it can't go into the blue bin. If the top is clean, you can rip it off, you can throw it into the blue bin, but the bottom is considered a food soiled paper. It's got grease on it, most likely, cheese on it. That can actually be composted. So that can go into your green bin or the black bin. Okay, so it sounded like there was some confusion. Oh, okay.
You can answer at the end if you want, but if we're throwing things that we shouldn't be into the blue bin, then what happens to everything in the blue bin?
That's a good question. I'll answer that in a second.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, so it sounded a lot like there was confusion. You're not alone. Like I said, these symbols are not regulated, and a lot of products are not meant to be recycled. But to make it easy for you to remember is anything, any kind of plastic that's soft, you can ball it up into your hand, you can poke your finger through it. That's considered a soft plastic, and it cannot go into the blue bin. Anything that's hard, like a rigid plastic, food containers, and cups, things like that, hard plastics, those can go into the blue bin as long as they're clean and dry. Okay, so there was a question about what happens to things that are not recycled or not recyclable in your blue bin. Well, they'll still get thrown into your blue bin, they'll still get thrown into the recycling truck, and they'll get dropped off at a materials recovery facility where they are put onto a conveyor belt that looks just like this. On the right-hand side, you have a conveyor belt that has no contamination. It's good to go, ready to sort items. On the left side, we have a heavily contaminated conveyor belt, primarily with soft plastics and tanglers. So that's like cords, wires, ropes, things like that. And when those go into the conveyor belt, they jam up the machines, and the whole facility has to be shut down, and they have to go in and clean it out to get them running again. And the best analogy I have for this is if you've ever run a vacuum cleaner and you've ever tried to clean it and take it apart, it's the same exact thing. It's all that hair that gets into the machine, it stops working. It's the same thing, but on a much larger scale. And then just for some best practices here, we all know that paper, plastic, glass, and metal can be recycled. Some things that might surprise you here, we have aseptic cartons all the way up at the top left. That's like a milk carton or a veggie broth type of carton. It's paper, it's kind of waxy, but if it's aseptic, then it is recyclable. On the far right over here, there's an aerosol can. It might surprise you to know that if that aerosol can is completely empty, there's nothing inside it at all, it can go into your blue bin and it can be recycled. If it's full and you can't get the material out, it's considered household hazardous waste and it has to go out to a special facility. If an item comes with a lid, you should empty out that product. You should make sure it's as dry as you can get it and put the lid back on. The lid by itself is not recyclable. So if it's on the bottle, it can be broken down and it can be recycled. So if a beverage container or a food jar comes with a lid, you should make sure the container is dry, and you can put the lid back on and then you can throw it into the recycling and it can be recycled. The lid by itself is too small to be recycled. It's just going to fall right through the conveyor belt and it's going to end up in the landfill. Again, the most important thing that we can do to make sure that our items are being recycled effectively is to make sure that they are empty and that they're dry and that they're loose. So if you use plastic bags to collect your recyclables, that's okay. Just make sure you don't throw the bag into the blue bin. Otherwise, it's going to jam up the machines. Yep. Very important. Soft plastics will destroy those machines. So
Is there some sort of a mechanism or a person who can pull those out before the blue bin gets dumped? Because it seems like a lot of people do throw the bags in there.
Yeah. So there is sorting by hand done at these facilities, but it's not enough where everything can be caught. Like the contamination, the number one contaminant that's seen at these materials recovery facilities are soft plastics. So those plastic bags, it's very important. Tell your friends, don't put them into the blue bin.
Hang on.
So there's a question about so what happens if the product is not dry? So the biggest problem when liquid goes into these blue bins is that it comes in contact with paper products. And when a paper product is wet, it damages the fibers to a point where it cannot be recycled properly. So if those paper products are wet, and then they won't be able to be recycled. So it's very important you try to get all that liquid out. Doesn't have to be the driest thing you've ever seen, but if you can get as much of it out as you possibly can, maybe leave it on your drying rack for a little while, you're good to go. Again, no soft plastics. And just to keep it simple, if it's larger than a credit card, it can be recycled easily. So that's why you leave those lids on.
Asking us to put to take the paper, our mail refuse, right? And just shove it all into an envelope or something just so that it all remains the same?
No.
No, but I've heard that in recycling, when you're recycling paper, if you put it in a single unit, that way it doesn't get wet at the bottom of the recycle bins. Is that helping?
That could help.
Your fizzy water boxes, whatever, just shove everything into a paper product.
You could condense the paper products into one. I'm not so sure it would prevent things from getting wet if there's other wet items in the blue bin. So I think it's more important just make sure there's no liquid in the blue bin. Yeah.
And then there's rain.
There's a question from Clarissa on Zoom. I've heard that plastics are functionally no longer being recycled. How is San Diego doing in this regard?
Okay, that's a great question. And we actually asked EDCO recently, and they told us that 70% of everything that's going to the materials recovery facilities are being bundled and sold off to outside manufacturers. So items are being recycled.
And for shredding, so what is the best way? Do you want it in a brown bag or do you want it in what kind of bag?
That is a great question. I don't have an answer to that one. I have heard a couple of different things regarding shredded paper, but at the very end, I'm going to have a slide here that's going to have a website where you can type that in. You can type in your zip code. It'll tell you exactly how you should dispose of it.
I don't know if you know the answer to this one either, but we have received notice that we're going to have trash collection fees put upon us in the city. Is that going to also affect blue bins and the green bins? Are they going to charge us to pick up recycling in the green bins? Do you know?
That's a great question. And I don't have an answer for that. I don't work for the city, but you're referring to, I believe, Measure B.
Lori, do you know the answer to that?
The proposed fees cover all the waste, black bins, green bins, and blue bins.
And I know you're all very proactive. So I think that there is actually a website called cleangreensd.org where you can actually go and make your voice heard regarding that.
So I'm not sure if this is true, but when EDCO recycles all this stuff, they do it because they end up getting the money, right, from the 5 cents per thing. That's kind of like it's like a profit thing for them, right? From what I
The
understand.
CRV.
Yeah. So what I found out recently is that grocery stores like Vons and Ralph's and all that, they pay thousands of dollars for them to not have to collect back the recyclables. So when we buy our water bottles and our regular bottles, we pay the CRV. It's almost they want to make it inconvenient for us to get our money back because the grocery stores are mandated to do it, but they can buy themselves out of doing it. So I have a friend, she's going to start a business that she is going to get permission to collect recyclables. So if you have your own recyclables, and she's going to use that money to donate to your not-profit of your choice. And then she's going to write the checks to help these people.
Barron's will take back your glass.
Yes.
Yeah, there's also a lot of recycling centers all throughout the county. The Miramar landfill also collects recyclables. So if you want to collect your cans, you could take them there, sell them. They weigh it and they'll pay you for it. So.
You know those white bags that we use from Vons? Those more than once, the not single use? Do you know on every one of those bags, there's a stamp on there? You know what it says? How many times you should use it? 125. Every one of the bags says 125 times usage. Yeah. And how many do you see people just take their garbage and throw it in it? One single use. Bad. We love a clean San Diego.
All right, so just to kind of finish off here, we'll talk a little bit about the green bins and recycling food waste. So the importance of recycling these food scraps. So hopefully you all know, but there was a bill, SB 1383, that required all residents in California, as well as businesses, to start utilizing the green bins for food waste. And the reason is because when food scraps and organic materials make their ways to the landfill, they don't decompose properly. They actually end up emitting a super pollutant called methane gas, which is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And actually, I just read recently from Cal Recycle that landfills are the third largest producer of methane gas in California. So this is a real problem, but you can put all food into your green bins. You can put meat, dairy, you can put bones, you can put rotten food and snacks into the green bin where it'll get sent out to a greenery, it'll get sent out to a composting facility, It'll break down properly and turn into nutrient-rich compost. Now, definitely want to keep anything recyclable, any sort of contamination out of the green bins. But the one thing I want to kind of emphasize are compostable plastics, bioplastics. So if you have started composting, you've got your kitchen pail, you want to keep things clean. There's a lot of companies that are selling bioplastic bags that look a lot like grocery bags. Usually they're green. But these bags are currently not accepted at the Miramar Greenery. So they cannot put these bioplastics into the green bins because they require a very specific environment and very high heat to break down properly. So currently you cannot put these bioplastics into the green bin. That includes the plastic cutlery, because there are bioplastic cutlery now that are supposed to be 100% compostable and biodegradable, but they cannot break down into nutrient-rich compost in our facilities. They are not recyclable. Yep, they have to go into the black bin. And then lastly, anything that can't go into those other bins, can't be reused, can't be repurposed, has to go into the landfill. And just to finish things off, maybe go to the next one. The slide's a little bit messed up, but this is the website that we run. It's called wastefreesd.org. You can go to this website, you can type in products like junk mail. It'll tell you how to unsubscribe and how to reduce it. You can type in clamshells from like grocery stores and it'll tell you how you can get rid of those. You can also type in batteries or hard to dispose of items. It'll show you the closest HHW, hazardous waste location. And there's one last slide, I think. You want to do that? Okay, so progress, not perfection. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. And if you would like to learn more, we have webinars, we have events every week, all the time. Definitely recommend you go to our website, cleansd.org/events. You can get a list of everything that we're doing. You can get involved. You can learn a lot.
All right. Any more questions for Chris?
Where have you been the most successful in this?
How do you mean? Like as an
Well,
organization?
Making people more mindful, and where you've seen communities of maybe certain zip codes or what have you, where they're doing more composting. You see that community or that group.
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have the data for that.
But you do see it.
I do a lot of booth events, so I'm out in public. I'm talking to people essentially on the streets. And when we start talking about composting, I see a lot of light bulbs going off, a lot of, oh, I didn't know you could do this. I didn't know you could do that. So I'm hopeful that there is progress. One thing I can tell you is that we have been told that the green bins have been a massive success. The city of San Diego is already seeing a decline in the tonnage, the amount of things that are going into the landfill. So it is making a difference.
I have a real question because maybe you said and I missed it. What does the city do with the stuff that goes in the green bins? I know they're turning it into compost, but then are they selling it to corporation? What do they do with it?
Great question. They're trying to get rid of it any way they can. That's a great question because we are actually working with the city of San Diego to put on these compost giveaway events. So if you go to our website, there's some dates. The next one's going to be at Canyonside, I think, which is in Mira Mesa. You basically can just show up with your car, your truck, and you can load up as much compost as you want for free. You can take it away. You can also go to the Miramar landfill where you can get, I believe, up to 2 cubic yards each and every day. If you live in the city of San Diego, they'll give it to you for free. So I don't know. She asked who does the chip drops, and I don't have an answer for that. I apologize.
Sorry. I was just curious. So we tried so hard with the green bin. We did everything we could. Do you know if and we got maggots. We had maggots and fruit flies and we have kids. So I was like, okay. Do you know if they're doing anything to allow the compostable bags eventually in the green bin, or is there something else we can do? We use the paper bags. We also have these things that we put in the green bin that was supposed to like kill the fruit flies that were growing inside of the green bin. And that was useful for like short periods. Is there anything you would recommend to help? Or if you know if they're going to start allowing the compostable bins at some point?
That's a great question. I will say that eventually I'm hopeful that they will start allowing these bioplastics into the greenery. Technology is not there yet, but I'm sure that it will get there soon. As far as mitigating pests and trying to make it a little easier and pleasant, there's a few things you can do. Definitely try to keep that green bin out of the sun. So if you have a way of keeping it in the shade, that will help a little bit because the sun, heat, that's just gonna make bacteria grow. The garage, okay. Another thing you can do, always, not always possible, but if you have space, you can keep your kitchen pail in your freezer or you can keep it in your fridge. You can also wait until,
And then like literally overnight it would happen. Like it was so crazy. But we did have the pail. We bought a freezer for the garage for the food scraps. Like I don't know. Thank you though. I thank you.
are you waiting to put the compost into the green bin until trash day?
We only had our little pail was like about this big. So it would get kind of filled up. We have kids and they eat what they want to eat. And
Were the maggots inside the freezer?
No, just in the green bin. And it during the summer. During the winter time and other times it was totally fine. Summer was the worst.
Well, you got to do the best you can. Another thing you can try to do is to try to layer items. So you can put grass clippings on top. You can put yard waste on top to try to limit it. You can try to sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know too that at the Miramar landfill, they do free tours of the landfill and the recyclable area. If you're interested, I mean, we learned a lot tonight, a lot of what you talked about, but it's a free tour. You can go and sign up and it's actually really informative and you can see it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate you. All right. So that takes us on. We're going to go on to unfinished business. Susan?
Many of you remember in the before times, 2019, long time ago, we sponsored an event, 1619 National Celebration of Black Women at the Women's Museum. And during that event, they made squares. And we donated some money for them to make it into a quilt. So we have on Zoom Cheryl Mallory Johnson, who's going to give you an update on this project.
Thank you so much, Susan. And Susan was very instrumental to making sure that we got this project off the ground. As Susan mentioned, back in 2019, late sometime in June at the Women's History Museum, Leah, who's pretty brilliant, came up with an idea that we put together kind of scraps of a material where people could write something very empowering and uplifting for Black women and girls. Those who don't know about our organization, we were founded in 2018, but we celebrated in 2019 the commemoration of the first African captives to arrive to the United States. And our mission is to continue to uplift and educate Black women and girls about their extraordinary ancestry and inspire them to walk in their power. So one of the projects we did was this quilt building idea. And we are so very grateful to the Democratic Women's Club because this past year, they donated $500 to assist us with this amazing quilt. And now it is coming to fruition. We're very excited. We're looking forward to having a quilt unveiling at the San Diego Women's Museum, thanks to Susan, who made contact with Bill Lawrence, and Leah and Laura Mitchell, who was excited about the idea. So the date is still up in the air, but we certainly hope that the members of the Democratic Women Club will be there. We're going to probably have a reception and then kind of a talk back that day. So we're looking at somewhere maybe the second week of March in Women's History Month.
You know we'll be there.
We're excited. Thank you so much for the support. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful event and a beautiful quilt. And we actually haven't really seen it come fully together. So we're excited about the unveiling.
It is exciting. Thank you for the update.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Susan.
Oh.
Susan is on our board, by the way. She is a board member for 1619 National Celebration of Black Women. We couldn't do what we do without them. And Elise Pipkin Allen is also on our board. We could not do it without them. So we are grateful that they are very enrolled and committed to uplifting and educating Black women and girls.
We are happy to support.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there any more unfinished business? Any new business? All right, we're going to move on to our officer reports. Let's go. Susan, look like you have one.
Okay. I hate to dominate here.
Susan is our external vice
Right.
president.
Right. So we have some members here of the San Diego Progressive Women's Collective. And we have Kirsten, who is the author of the thing that has been passed around. And I would like to give her the microphone to explain what her organization is and to explain what she has passed around. And the reason we do this is because we know you guys are really eager to do things, and we want to give you as much opportunity to take action. And we're not the only game in town. In fact, we're not even the best game in town. So that's why we do this.
Thank you, Susan. I'm just going to come up here so everybody can see me. Hi, my name is Kirsten Thrush. Just a little about me. I'm a registered nurse. I'm also a federal employee, a mother of a trans son, a girlfriend of an immigrant, and the stepdaughter of a Black man. So I have a lot of involvement in what's happening in the world on all angles, and it's all coming at me from each direction. I'm born and raised liberal and moved here from the East Coast originally. I love San Diego. I'm proud to be here. I can't really see myself ever living anywhere ever again other than here. So I'm here to stay. And I'm unfortunately not as involved as I would have liked to have been over the years. I've been here since 2009, but just finally really stretching out into the community. I met a group of lovely ladies. I know there's a few of you here that I actually haven't met, but we're an online collective at this point with a few meetups under our belt. Just a group of progressive women who were reaching out to each other saying, I'm not okay. What can we do? Can we support each other? Let's do something because we all feel the pain of what's happening in a deep emotional level, and we want to become active in whatever way we can. So we've had a few meetups where we got together. There's a couple of members who basically organized this group of women. And today we went to the protest and march, and I was there handing out the handouts that you have in front of you. Basically, at one of our meetups, I said, I think it would be helpful if we gave some information to people when they come there to help support whatever we can, whatever way we can boycott, whatever we can do, little small resistance to whatever we can do for our community to show our support. So I made these handouts, and I don't know if you can see them online, but it's basically just about the blackout on February 28th. So it gave a little information exactly about the date and times, midnight to midnight, all day, February 28th, blacking out economics. So what that means is don't buy anything, literally nothing. No gas, no food, nothing unless it's an emergency supply that you need that day. And this is to show the strength that we have if we all choose not to buy something on one day and we can show that economic impact in one day. Imagine what we can do for a period of time. So also on that little handout, I put out just some companies that you can start boycotting now that are non-DEI companies that have chosen to follow the lead of the political administration, even though they don't have to. And this is one thing that I struggle with being a government employee. My leadership coming from the top down, we don't have to submit, but everybody is. And because, oh, it's the president. Okay, great. Yes, I know that I serve the government and I serve our leadership. However, there are things that we can say no to. And so I wanted to start in whatever little ways we can do that. The next thing that I'm organizing at this point is a postcard mail out. So thank you for bringing that to our attention about the mailing, how important that can be. So I'll be printing out some postcards. There's a website that has just a graphic that you can use. I'm going to print some out. I'm going to sit down with some ladies. We're going to post it, put the postage on them, address them, and send them out. They're doing them in waves. The next wave needs to be mailed out by March 1st. So my goal is to have them done around February 26th, 28th, depending on everybody's availability, because I need people to help me. I can't write and post all those things by myself. So my group, I'm going to create an event and we're just going to do it. So thank you for having me here today. And
Thank you for
if,
coming.
If
We appreciate you.
anybody's interested in joining the group, it is now public. We at first were a little scared and kept it private, but now it's available. It's a San Diego Progressive Women's Collective.
Wonderful. Questions? Hold on one second.
My question is, would it be helpful to start contacting some of these companies with emails, letters, expressing our
I'm not
displeasure?
sure what impact direct contact would be. I think the point is like if we economically cut them off, that's going to hurt more than, they're going to blah, 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 listening, blah, 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 blah. But seeing it, feeling it, I think that's the impact that we're looking for.
And where are you sending out the postcards? If that's something?
Where? So it's to different government leaders. So we're going to kind of select our own leaders and then also some states that maybe people aren't involved in sending them to. And so we're just going to address them. There's on the website, it's very nicely organized. It has, how to look up your government leaders, who to send it to. So let me just pull up my phone so I can tell you the name. Okay, that'd be great. I apologize. I wasn't as prepared as I would have liked to have been, but San Diego Progressive Women's Collective.
I didn't want to interrupt her while she's searching, but I'm just curious about companies like Costco has voted affirmatively to maintain DEI. Are there some businesses that you would encourage people to support?
Yes. So I did provide a graphic to Susan that maybe you can share. If you can't share it now, maybe with the newsletter or so the one that we're focusing on is the Majority Project to Congress. So it's signsofjustice.com. 100,000 postcards in 4 waves. So it says, let's flood Congress with the facts. And it's just a postcard that has the majority of people's beliefs. And on the postcard, it has, let's see if I can click on it so it gets bigger so I can read it because my glasses. 86% people.
It's on our screen now.
Support universal background checks, 74% trans right protections. So the Majority Project, 100K postcards to Congress. If you kind of see that
down the center,
scroll down just a little bit. on the left there, the majority project, that's the one right there. So if you go to that website, it actually gives you the option. You can purchase them and have them sent to you, and then you can send them. What I did was I downloaded the file, and I'm going to print it on cardstock, and we're going to sit down and stamp and address them.
So do you have a Blue Sky account? The last 2 weeks I've been trying to get off Meta, and so I'm almost there.
Yes.
but-
So I believe if we haven't started one, we're going to, and we're also going to be communicating on different apps versus the Facebook. Right now, so many people are still on Instagram, Facebook platforms. We're trying to kind of gather the masses and swoop them in and get them somewhere else so we can be safe. I know we're going to probably start using Signal for communications. So it's all very new for us. So we're organizing now, getting people gathered, and then redirecting our platforms.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Kristen. All right. Susan's still doing her external vice president report.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so just so you know, Wendy Galertner will put a link to Wendy's Swing Left. They certainly have a excellent program, and they target specific precincts and elections that they think that they have the most influence on. So if you're going to do an action, Swing Left is an excellent one. The other, we all know Tama Becca Verano's Indivisible. They are going to be targeting the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They're going to be doing postcards in support of Judge Susan Crawford. And the links will be in the email that you will get tomorrow or next day, very soon, about supporting that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Susan. And we have our treasurer and our membership chair over here, our treasurer, Beatrice Cubitt.
Hi. The current bank account is approximately $3,600.
Thank you, Beatrice.
I just wanted to say our membership right now is down because it is always this time of year when people need to renew and join. However, I just wanted to say that I'm very inspired by the number of people who have joined since the election, since the November election, and the number of people who have renewed, and the number of people here now. You're fabulous. I remember right after the election, everyone just felt so burnt out and so angry and so done with it. Nobody's done with it here. Congratulations to everyone.
Thank you, Patricia. All right, Hannah, do you have a report? Can we go to Zoom and check in with our media director, Angela DeJoseph, to see if she has a report?
Good evening. Well, I wanted to thank everyone who volunteered. The Democratic Women's Club really helped out with our Women of Color Roar. We had over 600 people on February 1st, and it was a big event with lots of moving parts. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all of you that came through and supported us and volunteered. And there's a lot going on, and I think that I want to just say something about the Black and African Women Rise Democratic Club, that we had a great meeting. Thank you, Kathy, for staying to the end. But we had a great meeting, and I think that we need to join forces and so that we can be all on the same page. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Absolutely. If you'd like to join BAR, there is a QR code by our door, so you can join their club as well. And they do great work, and we're excited to partner with them whenever we can. And Angela is co-president, and the other president is Elise Pipkin-Allen, and she is our Director of Community Relations. Elise, do you have a report today? I think you're muted, Elise. Elise, you're on mute. John, can you unmute her?
Yes, I had just sent you a text message, you and Susan, Kathy, to make sure that we were still on the board as our advisory capacity. And I wanted to thank you for doing that because we learned so much, especially since we have been dealing with the Black and African Women Rights Democratic Club. You guys have been really in a leadership capacity as far as we are getting our endorsement meetings and caucuses and things like that settled. So I love being on the board and I appreciate you.
It is our pleasure, Elise. Thank you. All right. I think we've talked enough tonight, so I don't have any report. The one thing I want to say is thank you so much to our tech team, Hannah, John, Nick, Susan. Thank you so much for making our hybrid meetings possible. We really appreciate it. Are there any announcements tonight? All right, Michelle.
I'm juggling with the National Union of Healthcare Workers. I had to be at another meeting earlier. We are still out on strike. This is week 18. What is the date? 126 days. And Kaiser is not moving. So if it's possible for anybody to give money to, Pat has been out there several times, which we really appreciate. If there's anybody that can give any money towards the hardship fund, these mental health workers are really trying to not go back and not give in to Kaiser, and every little bit helps for them to be able to stay out one day longer. And that is on the, I'll give it to John again, but it's on kaiserdon'tdeny.org. And again, I don't even know if the club might be in a position to help with that, but really coming out there, if you are able to, make such a difference. They just feel like there's a reason to continue to go on. And, you know, talk to Pat about it because she's just been great about keeping the inspiration going.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Amber? All right, Amber has got her hand up on Zoom. Go ahead, Amber. Our brand new internal vice president.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy, and everyone in the room. I am just sending out into the chat an invitation to the North County African American Women's Association biannual women's conference that is on March 15th, but it is also our 30-year anniversary. I will be hosting a chair yoga workshop, but it will be all about women's wellness and things that collectively help us uplift. We have Jackie Harry as our keynote speaker, and Liz Russell will be doing a fashion show for us. So I would love for you to join us and join me as I will, like I said, I'll be hosting one of the workshops, and a great way for you guys to show some support up in North County. So appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Amber. All right, and don't worry if you missed any of these links. They will be sent out in an email. Tomorrow is Central Committee, so it won't be tomorrow, but it will be Wednesday. You should get an email. If you're new tonight, we hope you joined. If you didn't join, please leave your email on the way out and I'll add you to our email list. All right, any other announcements?
So I realize that you've been asked to call your congressional office on a lot of different health and other policies. The latest is the National Environmental Policy Act is now up for an interim rule change, basically to eliminate it and eliminate the regulations that protect our air quality, water quality. Any new projects have to normally go through that process for an environmental impact at the federal level. Here in California, we have CEQA, which is the state version of that. It's the California Environmental Quality Act. But when you make contact with your federal offices, tell them to do everything they can to protect the National Environmental Policy Act. Otherwise, projects will just go through without any review of flooding impacts, pollution impacts. So NEPA is the acronym. So add that to your list of things to let Congress know you want to protect.
NEPA, got it. All right. I don't see any more announcements. Oh, one more from.
Sorry. I don't know if this came up before, but if anybody has any questions, please see me. This weekend is the last weekend, well, the last time to vote in the ADEM elections. If you go to adem.cudem.org, you can see the list of candidates. Anybody who registered to get an online ballot, you should have gotten something in the mail that would have given you your 10-digit PIN and a password. If you're having any difficulty with that, please talk to me. And if you missed that deadline, which was January 31st, then you can vote in person this weekend. Saturday, it will be at the IBW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, from 10 to 2, 4545 View Ridge Avenue. And on Sunday at the Malcolm X Library from 1 to 5, which is Euclid and Market. So you can come in there without having done any registration, but if you want to make your life simpler, see me and go to the adem.cudem.org and register to vote in person, because then at least you'll have your PIN number.
Thank you, Michelle. For our new folks, we will have to give you a primer on the party, the local party, and then the state party. Michelle's talking about CADEM, that's the California Democratic Party. There's a lot to unpack there. So for some of you new folks, I know there's been a lot of information tonight, and we will do a little presentation on that in the future.
Oh, Kathy, this is Ellen Nash.
Go ahead, Ellen.
I wanted to announce that BAPAC will be collaborating with the Asian Pacific Islanders group in regards to convening the D1 Board of Supervisors Forum on March 5th at, I think it's at noon. So I'll get a flyer over to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I see Bertha has her hand up too. Bertha
Yes.
is our.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Kathy. Just to make a quick announcement, I'm your representative for the South Bay Area Caucus meeting. And tomorrow we're having a meeting at 5:30 to do the endorsement on D1. The meeting will be held on Zoom. If anyone is interested, I can go ahead and post the link so you can also join the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bertha. So she's talking about the city party, I'm
Right.
sorry, the county party.
County.
The San Diego County Party has a central committee, and she is our representative for the South area, and they're voting tomorrow on who might be our candidate for Board of Supervisors. So I know it's a lot of information that can be overwhelming, but do not dismay. If you have questions, there's always somebody who can help. All right, one more thing, Susan?
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that we are the only club in the county that has our own app. So, and you can find it on the Google and the Apple Play Store.
Yeah, Android or Apple, just look DWC-SD and you will find our logo and find our app. All right, we have reached the end of our agenda and I am calling this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. I feel so much better just being around all of you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.